When people use the business model canvas, they tend to fall in love with the business model too quickly and refine it, and then just go deeper and deeper. So in particular, at the beginning of when you use it, you want to make very different business models very rapidly, very rough models. Explore business models with switching costs. Yeah. Explore business models that are scalable. Mm-hmm. So you want to do that first. Well, that's number one aspect. The number two aspect is, and this is something that we didn't describe in our book, that I learned from Steve Blank, is, well, even using the canvas without testing is just like the business plan of the 21st century. It's much shorter, it's not 50 pages, it's 1 page, which is already an improvement. Yet, the things you put on the canvas are assumptions. You don't know if they're going to work, so you need to go test them. And the idea here is that you go test them very rapidly, and then you iterate and pivot through your business model canvas. You know what? At the beginning, your business models, I call those prototypes, should be very rough. They should have very little information, and you should immediately go test. Actually, the moment you have the idea, the moment you can sketch out a canvas in 15 minutes. Yeah. That very moment, you should be making your first call to potential customers, right? You should getting out of the building, as Steve says, and talking to them. The more you learn, the more detail you can add. Because the more you've tested your business model, the more you have certainty, the more you refine. If you refine too quickly, you're wasting your time, right? Yeah. Because you don't know if it's going to work. But the more you test, the more you'll learn. So it's very mixed. I mean, even in the VC market, you'll find some people who still want to see a business plan. Will they ever read it? Probably not, right? But I mean, it's a mixed thing. The adoption is bigger here, smaller there. It depends. Now, I think the big breakthrough is when we scale up education away from the business plan. And here, typically, Steve Blank has done a fabulous job because he's changed the way we educate entrepreneurs today in the leading universities.
With his classes at Stanford.
Absolutely, and where he uses the business model canvas in customer development, that's a big shift in education. And as long as we still have business plan competitions, people will still be talking about business plans. So the business plan, don't get me wrong, the business plan per se is not bad. What is bad is if we spend a lot of time developing assumptions before testing them. So typically, one of the things that we're doing is we're building software to help people rapidly sketch out and prototype business models. If a software generates a business plan very quickly, you didn't waste your time, so it's not a bad thing, right? Yeah. And it's more the wasting of the time and the lack of iterating and testing that's the problem. The business plan per se is not the problem. So we just need to change the mindset away from thinking too long, what you might call intellectual masturbation, towards, you gotta be provocative sometimes, right? Towards prototyping, testing and pivoting your business model in a much more rapid pace and with the market. No, so the business model canvas doesn't need improvement because it works. Now, do we need other tools together with the canvas? That's a different question. So the question shouldn't be, do we need to improve the canvas? Because it works for what it was designed to do, to help people have better conversations, strategic conversations about business models. Now, do we need other tools that work together with the canvas? You bet. I mean, you can't just do everything with a hammer. If you have a screw, a hammer doesn't make sense, right? So you need a screwdriver, you need a wrench. If you take a surgeon, he has a series of tools. So why is it in business that one tool should do everything? So, I mean, if you take us as a team, we came up with a new tool called the value proposition canvas, which is about zooming into one part of the business model, the value proposition in the customer segments for whom you create value, to sketch out that on a map, just like you would sketch out business models. Then you want to have other tools to measure and test, right? Or to test and measure. And there, typically customer development and lean startup are great processes to do that. Will we need more tools to do that? Yes, for sure. So one tool shouldn't do everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll get, you know this picture of the Swiss Army knife that does everything? It's this fat and you
Yeah.
can't use it, right?
Yeah.
So when people tell me, oh, you should add this, you should add that, I think, well, why don't you just make another tool to solve that specific aspect that you're looking at, right? And we need to work together.
Yeah.
Big problem is, a lot of business thinkers sell their concepts and tools as if it was a religion and it did everything.
One-size-fits-all solution, but
Right.
there doesn't actually exist.
There you go. What you need is people who work together and their tools work together.
Okay.
Yeah, so our answer to the lean canvas was the value proposition canvas. So having one tool that allows you to focus on the business model canvas, and one tool that allows you to zoom in, look at the detail of your value proposition and how exactly it creates value for your customers, that's another question.
Yeah.
Do you need both? You bet. You need both, right? Could one tool do both? No, because they're different levels of granularity, right? So a great value proposition is important to launch your business, yet a great value proposition without a great business model might bankrupt you, right? So you need both. But we need more tools. So here's a big idea. We have these principles now floating around customer development and lean startup, right? But if you Google techniques to test, go have a look.
Yeah.
What are we going to see? Very basic stuff. Everybody's talking about minimal viable products, but who's giving you a catalog of how to test? Now we're going to shift towards turning this into a real profession where we're going to figure out what are the 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 methods to test our assumptions. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know a couple of very large companies who systematically use the business model canvas to understand their customers in a business-to-business environment. Because if they understand their customers' business models, they can understand how they can create value for them. Yeah. So some companies are doing this today systematically. Yeah, so from our team, you know, definitely go Google the value proposition canvas. We haven't written a book around it, but yes, we're going to publish some more content. The tool is out there for people to use. So figure out the value proposition canvas. Excellent tool. Then obviously, you know, Steve Blank's work, first with the 4 Steps to the Epiphany and then the Startup Owner's Manual. Yeah. Very, very important. It should be in every entrepreneur's library. Yeah. And then Eric Ries's you know, Lean Startup. Sure, that's kind of the basic, you know, toolbox. But then, you know, a lot of it exists out there on the web, you know, figuring out what are the concrete testing techniques. Yeah. So nobody has written that book yet, you know, giving me a catalog where I can say, oh, you know, I want to test this, how can I do it? Yeah. Because I think even before building a minimal viable product, you know, there's other stuff, Google ads, whatever, right? I mean, but somebody giving us the catalog to do that, that's missing. I think we should have that. And then, you know, when you go into large companies, I work mainly with large companies, you have a whole other set of books and tools that are relevant that have more to do with organizational structures. You know, stuff, you know, that you don't need in a startup because you're starting from a blank sheet. You don't have organizational structures. If you have business cards in a startup, you're already probably screwed up because you know, when you're 5 people, you don't need a VP of sales, right? I mean, that's plain silly.